recruiting.You'll.net.
That sound can mean only one thing.
It's the Out of Bounds Show, Power Hour.
Just go ahead and do it.
Delivering to you the best sports analysis on all SEC and NFL football action an hour earlier than ever before. Yes, from Hail State to Hottie Toddy, don't miss the interviews and hot takes that will make you the office sports guru. The Out of Bounds Power Hour.
So powerful it can penetrate any known material.
Weekdays 6 to 7 a.m. right here on the Zone.
All right, you want to do Show Me the Money? Powered by the Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook. Bet $50 there. Play award-winning Dancing Rabbit Golf Club for $30. Here we go.
When the lights are about to be turned off, you know what you need. Because you got to somehow make that paper, right?
Right. Show me the money!
You come to the right place for that. Because it's time for Bo Bounds to...
Show me the money!
To show you the...
All right, we're going to start on Saturday. Rams-Packers first game of the NFL playoff round, divisional round.
Okay.
Packers are favored by 6.5. The Rams only giving up 18.6 points per game on the season, but their home road splits in the red zone are atrocious. They're the number one defense at home in the red zone. They're the worst defense in the NFL on the road in the red zone. Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. Who you got? Packers 6.5 against the Rams.
Packers are going to win. I'm going to go. I usually would. I would usually take the points, but pick the Packers to win. So I'm going to give them, and that's too many to do. Here's the deal. Aaron Donald, if his rib cartilage is torn, Blake, that's a problem. Aaron Donald, for our listeners, is a best defensive player in the NFL, number one defensive lineman in the NFL, an absolute disruptor. While you're diving into some red beans and rice and a beat of Andy Gator on whatever day they play, Blake?
Saturday.
Thank you, Saturday. But I just feel like Rodgers and Adams and the fact that they found more than one running back and they can plow you with Elton Jenkins and those guys, I think that'll be enough to just barely pull away from the L.A. Rams. And I don't like the fact that Aaron Donald's evidently has torn cartilage. I don't think you can breathe or sleep.
Agreed.
When that happens, much less play at the high level that we're used to. And Blake mentioned how bad the Rams are as far as defensive scoring efficiency on the road. And that's a major, major oh-no for me.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay.
100%. Second game of the day, Saturday, Buffalo Bills hosting just their second home playoff game in what feels like 30 years. Oh, wait, it is. Buffalo favored by 2.5 against the visiting Baltimore Ravens. Interesting tidbit. Buffalo 8-1 at home, 6-3 against the spread at home. But Baltimore 7-2 on the road this season, 6-2 against the spread on the road this season.
Oh, I'm going Baltimore.
Other tidbit.
Here, let me tell you why. Okay, go ahead.
Well, hold on. And here's before you take Baltimore, because I think might be making a mistake. Buffalo, I told you this last night, Buffalo runs more 4 wide receiver sets than anyone in the league. Baltimore against 4 wide receiver sets this season, 21st, 26th, and 23rd in their defensive efficiency rankings against 4 wide receiver sets.
Okay. First of all, the Colts should have won last weekend. Okay.
Ooh.
2, look at what Baltimore has done the last 6 games running the football. They have found 2 running backs that are better than Mark Ingram, okay? Plus, Lamar is an absolute handful on the ground. So they basically have 3 running backs that can slice and dice you. And Harbaugh has been here. Not that McDermott has not done a phenomenal job for the Buffalo Bills, but give me those points because the Ravens are winning.
Show me the money!
Taking the underdog
and the
outright.
Ravens have outrushed some teams' total rushing yards for the season in their last 6 games.
Yes.
They have dialed it up.
Yeah. No, they've been phenomenal. It's going to be interesting to watch.
Okay.
Game number 1 on Sunday, Cleveland at Kansas City. It's the largest spread of the weekend. Kansas City favored by 10 points over the Browns, who won their first playoff game in, again, what seems like 30 years.
Right.
Can Baker Mayfield and company go on the road to windy Kansas City and hang with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs?
Absolutely, they can. I will take the points. Here's what Cleveland has to do. Run. When you have Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, you need to run it more. The Browns get their best offensive lineman back and their best defensive back. Guess what? The Chiefs have struggled to put people away this year. This is going to be one whale of a game, even though people will look at it and go, oh, the Browns have been terrible for 30 years. And they have been. They've got a good football team, Blake. I will take those 10 points all day long.
You gonna show me the money.
All right. Just so I'm clear, you're still picking Kansas City to win.
I'm picking Kansas City to win, Blake, but I love those 10 points.
All right. I like that. All right, we'll go to the game of the weekend and possibly the last game of the Drew Brees era. Tampa Bay visiting New Orleans. New Orleans has beaten Tampa Bay twice this season. We heard from Mike Detillier in the NFL playoffs. Over the last 40 years, teams are 14-7 against teams that they've beaten twice in the regular season. New Orleans is favored by 3. The catch is Tom Brady and the Bucs scoring 41 points a game over their last 3 games. The Saints giving up 16 points a game over their last 3. What gives in the Bayou?
I hate to say this because I want the Saints to win. I'm not going to be like you and obnoxious on Twitter on Sunday. I like who dat, but I love NOLA, and I love everything. I just love it. I love it. There's nothing better than driving in on a Friday and spending the weekend in New Orleans and enjoying all the amazing food and culture and beverage and all that kind of stuff. And you can dance from the Quarter to the Warehouse District to Uptown, among other places. Tampa Bay is on a roll. Brady is playing so much better than earlier in the year, and they've got a lot of weapons, even though that Saints D is fantastic. I'm going with the Buccaneers.
Show you the money.
Interesting.
Yep. It makes me cringe.
Okay.
I don't. Can I say this?
You can say whatever you want.
Sean gets too cute with Taysom Hill. Play, okay?
He's got $16 million of ego wrapped up in it.
I know it, and I think Taysom Hill is a nice, great story. Okay, I'm not as enamored with him as obviously a super hardcore Who Dat fan, who we have listening right now, and I love you, but Blake, he's not worth half of that.
Correct.
He's just not. Now it gets cute, and everybody gets all revved up and fired up on the couch or in the recliner when Sean sends him in. But to me, he breaks the tempo of the offense.
Correct. No, you're right.
And at critical times, like in the red zone.
Yes.
It's already hard enough to get there in the NFL playoffs.
And then you screw it up.
Exactly.
All right.
You can't kick. Here's my theory there, Blake. You can't kick field goals against Tampa Bay all day.
You can't. Well, and that comes
because
to this
Brady will eventually get you.
More passing touchdowns, Brady or Breeze.
I hate to say this. I'm going to go Tom Brady.
Show me the money!
If I'm wrong, I expect to hear from all of you on Twitter.
All right, last one. The over is hit in 3 of the last 5 for the Saints and 3 of the last 5 for the Bucs. However, the Saints have hit the under in their last 2. Over under 52 total points for Saints Bucs.
20. Let me do some 20. 27. 23. I'm going to go under.
You gonna show me the money.
Yeah. Oh, God, that sounds bad.
That's a terrible take.
No, that's terrible.
You lost that one. Don't ever bet the under. Team over all day, every day.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
Let me change that.
All right, you can take
I
that
want to go over.
That's a smart call.
Okay.
That was an appropriate
I know
change.
what the Saints can do, and then the Bucs have some dudes on defense, but let's just say the Dome, the weather's going to be perfect.
Yeah.
And I think that they'll score a little bit more. I know the Saints and Bears was all mucked up.
But that's the Bears.
But that's the Bears. So, the Bears.
The Bears.
The Bears.
Who gave their coach and GM a vote of confidence over the weekend.
I saw that. They're going to bring both back.
Yeehaw.
Well, it's not. They got to get a quarterback, Blake. And then we can see what these two guys, evidently they're talented guys, the head coach and the GM. But they've got to get a quarterback. Of course, I could say that about. All right, is Urban Meyer going to the Jacksonville Jaguars? We've got Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus at 8:30. John Cohen, Athletic Director at Mississippi State at 9:30. Welcome in. Good morning. Unbelievable weekend for sports and food coming up. And I love the time slots for the NFL on both Saturday and Sunday. Welcome in. Good morning. This is the Out of Bounds Show.
Bank Plus, together with Zelle, makes it easy to send money straight from your smartphone to friends, family, the yard guy, babysitters, or millions of others with access to Zelle. So yeah, pretty much anyone. And of course, they can all send you money too. Settle that dinner tab with Zelle. It's free, fast, and secure. And right in the Bank Plus mobile app. Your bank, your plus. Learn more at bankplus.net. Member FDIC. Zelle is available to United States bank account holders only. Terms and conditions apply.
The Out of Bounds Show is powered by the award-winning golf courses at Dancing Rabbit Golf Club in Philadelphia, Mississippi.
All right, Nick Saban with his 7th national title. Won 1 at LSU and 6 at the University of Alabama. The SEC Insider Hit this morning is brought to you by Capital Preservation Services. Todd Martis and his team will take care of you. They work with medical professionals, lawyers, and business owners. They help you earn more and keep more. Utilize a team of tax planners and specialized attorneys to stand behind their work. Capital Preservation Services will help you earn more and keep more with Capital Preservation Services. Our next guest knows Nick Saban as he got to know him and covered him in Louisiana when Coach Saban was the head football coach at LSU. He is Mike Detillier, WWL Radio TV New Orleans. And Mike, you've been able to cover some great coaches. Skip Bertman, he basically had a dynasty at LSU. He bottled that thing. Nick Saban totally rebooted LSU football. What separates Saban from everybody else in a sport where you're not supposed to be able to build a dynasty and sustain it this day and age because you lose juniors and you're capped scholarship-wise?
I think he is never satisfied with what happened. He never talks about the past. It's always about today and tomorrow. And, you know, he gave speeches to the point where, man, well, I could have said them because he really never changed them. But that was a big part of it with him, that everybody wants to talk about their past. I want to talk about today and tomorrow. And he said, I think that that's a big key to success in any business or any sport, is always striving to put away the past to work for, you know, basically the next game, the next season. And I had really never heard anybody sort of speak that way. And I think that's what separates him. Skip Bertman, you know, Skip would talk a lot about the past, that he felt it was the bridge to the future. Not Nick. Didn't want to talk about what had happened before. He wanted to talk about what was going to happen. And I think that's what separates him. Coaches today, they want to tell you about, well, let me tell you about, 2018. We were third in the country and we had one loss. No, ain't going to get that from Nick. It's not going to happen. And so I think he's always striving to be the perfect type of team, but not what happened in the past, what's going to happen in the future. And he always emphasized that, Bo. And, you know, it was funny how every speech sort of had that point with him, that don't come here and tell me about what we did. And I think he relays that to the players, that, you know, you might have made all SEC last year. What you going to do this year? He would in the room and say, okay, how many of y'all are in a situation where it's great to reminisce with people about your past, but do they talk about their future with you? How successful are they? You heard dead silence. I mean, dead silence. He was remarkable with that. Everything had its little place with him. And he would talk about R&D all the time, that he thought that was a big key to success. Not just recruit a player, develop the player. R&D. And he sung that song every speech about how many people, he says, you remember your high school class and the people that graduated at the top. And he said, those are the top recruits in the country, right? Those top 3, 4, 5 people out of every class that graduates. What did they do after they finish high school? And how many people sort of down the line did much better in life? They developed. And you saw everybody sort of nod, and would say, yeah, well, because we all know people like that. It's not always the top recruit. It's the part about developing. And he would sort of equate that to regular life like no one I've ever heard. Skip was funny. Skip wanted to tell stories. That was his deal. He always had stories. Do you hear stories from Nick?
Not really.
He's not a storyteller. I'm around Coach O. He's a great storyteller. Today he is. He wasn't at Ole Miss, but he is today. I think that part he sort of developed. And, he'll talk about his past and stuff like that. But, with Nick, he's not about telling a story. He's about emphasizing a point to you of why he's successful. And he has got, I'll never forget, this was probably early October on a Monday night. I got, and I had him on last night. He's one of the best guests I've ever got on is Pete Jenkins, longtime defensive line coach, 79 years old. He always laughs about, man, I talk about them old coaches, them guys in their 50s, and that sort of thing. And he's working in Miami with prospective prospects for the NFL draft today. 79 years old, just never quits. And I was telling him, about certainly things that happened this year were so unusual for coaches. And he said 2 things are going to happen. He said, one, a lot of coaches up in age are going to walk away from this game after this year. Because he said, coaches are creatures of habit. You do the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. Couldn't do that this year. And he said, it throws you out of whack. And you think, maybe I can't do this anymore. And he said, in a year from now, they're going to think about it, and they'll be back in the game, but they're going to walk away for a little while. And he said, secondly, I think they're going to find out that you better have people around you that have the pulse and the heartbeat of the outside world. He said, look at Nick Saban. He walked with his team, when all this social unrest was happening in America. He said, do you think that Nick Saban's the type of guy that goes home and sits on the couch and watching the CBS nightly news? Or is he watching Sean Hannity? Or is he watching CNN or whatever you watch, you get your news from? He said, that ain't Nick Saban. He ain't sitting home watching the news. But he said, Mike, they got a couple guys on that. He puts on every team because he said, I've been around it. And they got a job I wouldn't want. They tell him what's going on in the outside world. Now he said, here's a guy almost 70 years old. and you got to explain to him and of what's happening. If it's COVID, if it's the social unrest or what happened this summer, of what's happening in Washington, D.C. He said Nick is so cocooned, he don't pay attention. He's not seeing what's happening in the outside world. Like you said, like most coaches, they don't get to see that, because they're not going to work at 6:30 in the morning, not coming home at 5, So you got to have people around you to tell you. And he said, secondly, you got to have people that got enough backbone to tell you, hey, coach, we got to talk. There's something seriously happening.
No one outfits golfers better than Edwin Watts Golf Shops. We've been fitting golfers since 1968. Utilizing cutting-edge fitting technology, we'll analyze your swing and our Foresight launch monitors and fit you with the perfect club, pair of shoes, the latest golf apparel, golf balls, bags, and more. So come by today for your complete custom fitting. Edwin Watts Golf Shops, home of the 90-day 100% satisfaction guarantee.
The Out of Bounds Show is live from the Whiskey 61 Lounge in the Bank Plus studio.
Check it out.
Our SEC Insider Hit this morning is brought to you by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Mississippi. It's good to be blue, the official healthcare provider of the Out of Bounds Show. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Mississippi. You're listening to 105.9 The Zone. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app. And we welcome in John Cohen, MSU AD. And John joins us on the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale guest line. John, before we get into Mike Leach and the baseball schedule, we were talking NFL pairings for food this weekend. Saints are playing. Are you a red beans and rice fan?
I'm not. My father was a native New Orleanian, and he absolutely loved all that stuff. And, that was in my house growing up in Tuscaloosa when I was, growing up. So, yeah, I have a real appreciation for it, but not as big a fan as others.
What about oysters? Charbroiled, raw, or neither?
I will do oysters all day long. Etouffee, I'll do it all. Just the only thing that I'm not a huge fan of is red beans and rice for whatever reason.
All right, well, you're still in then with Saints fans if you go with oysters and all that, so you're good.
You know what, Bo? My father used to give us the speech that all of that stuff was born out of the Depression, because they didn't have as much meat.
Sure.
During the Depression, so red beans and rice and all the crawfish stuff. And he used to love giving us the speech about where all this food came from, but he loved his New Orleans heritage.
Man, talking about great food in South Louisiana for sure. John, let's start with football and Mike Leach. They finished with some serious momentum. It was an up and down crazy year just throughout the country. But Leach and the staff had to get through some things and played a ton of freshmen and young kids. And yet from midway through, they played really well and ended with 2 wins. What was your takeaway?
Yeah, I think I'm not going to say that everything was predictable, but everything Mike Leach told me he was going to do with this football program, he did this year. He was going to find out what kids really wanted to play football, what kids loved football, and he was going to find out who wanted to work at it and, who was going to be a responsible teammate and selfless. And I think he did, in many cases, a pretty good job of the evaluation along with his staff. I think the other thing that Mike Leach did was through repetition, hard work, film work, all that kind of stuff, found a little bit of a rhythm with some younger players, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And of course, Coach Arnett and our defensive staff just did an incredible job with our defense, allowing us to stay in games. I mean, Bo, in that middle part of the year, and I think Mike will be the first to tell you, our offense was putting our defense in such a bad position game after game after game. And,
sure.
And when our offense finally figured some things out, I think you started to see some things happen. I mean, when you look at the history of our football program and you name all the times we've beaten ranked teams back to back. You start naming the last time we won a bowl game against a ranked opponent. I believe it was 1941. You might have that information in front of you. Some really positive things have happened. And with the recruiting class that's coming in, I think it is what I would call a hidden gem type of class. And we still have some scholarships to give and go get the right people. So I think there's some really exciting things on the horizon.
I want to get into Will Rogers here in a second, but you mentioned Zach Arnett. Kind of been a whirlwind, I guess, week for you and Mike Leach and others. But it looks like he's staying. 34 years old, did a tremendous job for Hail State football this year. I'm told, you know more than I do, that the players love playing for them, but you locked him up December 1, somewhere in there. That doesn't happen often. And so you and Mike, I guess, and whatever got together and got this thing done because the season was far from over, unlike other years. Why were you so proactive in that?
Well, Mike and I speak every day, during the football season, and we together came to the agreement of, we want to do whatever we can to keep Zach Arnett in this football program. We knew he was going to be a hot commodity. In fact, we presented him with a contract extension. I believe we're 2-6 at the time. And Zach is such a great human being and a great coach. I mean, he was a little bit taken aback, because he felt like, our performance wasn't there yet. And of course, on paper, that's true. But to see how the kids responded to him, to see how our defense came together and really played hard. And at times, quite frankly, in terms of personnel, we were overmatched. We're playing walk-ons, but he always had us lined up correctly, and the kids really understood what he was trying to do. And it's a very creative, deceptive defense that he has really mastered on the chalkboard. So Mike and I collectively thought, hey, this is the right thing to do, and we're going to get it done as quickly as possible.
Well, it was a good move for Hail State football. So Zach Arnett, defensive coordinator in his first year under Mike Leach. John Cohen joining us, AD at MSU. John joins us on ESPN 105.9 The Zone. I want to go to Will Rogers. It's rare, or it doesn't happen really, at the Blue Bloods that a true freshman comes in at quarterback and plays at a high level. I was thinking about some of your guys. I mean, Chris Stratton, I think, was a weekend starter right off the bat. I can't imagine how difficult that is as a true freshman. You've had some other guys on your baseball teams, but talk a little bit about what you observed from Will Rogers with what he getting thrown into the mix after KJ Costello got injured.
Yeah, I've always said, in my opinion, it's like the 15-year-old who's got the learner's permit, and they get in a car at age 16, they finally get their license, and you say, hey, listen, you can't drive under 85 miles an hour no matter where you go. They are going from a speed in high school to a speed in the SEC that is very hard to adjust to. And, there is no gradually work up to that level, the speed of the game. And let's just lay it out there too. We didn't have any non-conference games for that guy to play in. He immediately is seeing SEC defenses at a very high level. And I'm a huge fan of the kid. I think we're going to have tremendous depth and competition at the quarterback position. But obviously, Will is a guy that grew up very, very quickly, a mature young man. I'm a huge fan. And while the leadership he provided, even older guys, pretty remarkable what he did as a freshman. And you look at the productivity of he and Wally and our young running backs and some of our young wide receivers, they really produced the majority of offense against some pretty good football teams down the stretch for us.
Yeah, I think it's actually been an under-the-radar story in what Will did in the SEC as a true freshman, considering the circumstances. And you mentioned they didn't get any non-con. John Cohen on the Out of Bounds show. Can you compare watching Will Rogers this year to coaching a true freshman like Jake Mangum in SEC play?
Yeah, except baseball is one of those things where the game's you might find you but it might not. So Jake Mangum, the game's going to find him in his 4 at-bats, of course. Is the game going to find him? Is there going to be a really difficult play he's going to have to make defensively? So the game decides whether it's going to find you or not in baseball. In football, if you're quarterback, the game finds you on every play.
Good point.
And so, yes, Jake Mangum was able to step in immediately and not only defend at a high level, but win an SEC batting title as a freshman. And, those things don't happen very often, but I think very much a similar type of mental attitude in that Jake wanted to be a leader from the minute he walked on the field. And I think that's exactly the case here with a really good the other thing too is you can be a freshman outfielder and not have to be a leader. If you're a quarterback in the SEC, you're Will Rogers, you have to be a leader right from the time you step on the field.
Right. Spurrier Jr. joined us last week or this week, and he talked about Jaden Wally and Tulu and how their approach coming to work, no drama, just wanted to get better. Did you observe some of that with the freshman wide receivers?
I did, and I will tell you, and I think I've mentioned this to you before, Bo, a Mike Leach practice is different than anything you've ever encountered before. If you're an offensive player and you're a skilled guy, you're probably going to run somewhere between 7 and 9 miles every practice. I mean, it doesn't stop. It's relentless. And we're never going to lose a game because the other team's in better physical condition than we are. So the reason I bring this up for a wide receiver is they are running more than anybody else, especially in Mike's system. And I think getting used to that, having to deal with that, and not having a spring to get through that or a summer camp to get through it and just being thrown out there, they had to adjust to a lot of this. And I'm really proud of those kids in the adjustments that they made as a freshman, against, again, real SEC defenses every week.
John Cohen on the Out of Bounds Show. Let's switch gears, John, and talk SEC baseball. The schedule was released, and it looks like it's kind of going according to plan. Do you like what y'all decided on through Birmingham and all the ADs?
Well, here's the thing. Baseball, in college baseball, is one of those grassroots sports to where I think playing a non-conference schedule is really important. You really can't have an RPI. There's nothing, you can't create anything that's objective to mark the success of a team if you don't play non-conference games. And even though I know a lot of leagues around the country have really elevated their in-conference play and eliminated some non-conference, I'm really glad that that's a decision we have made. The other thing, Bo, is we haven't run away from the fact that if we have some stoppage early, we could immediately pivot because you got a month into the season before you go into SEC play. You could pivot right into a 4-game series if you needed to do that so that the kids get to play. And I think there's two main issues with this, Bo. We want the kids to be able to play as many games as they can through this COVID environment because they missed last year. They only played, I believe, 16 games. But at the same time, we still want to make sure that the Southeastern Conference is strong and putting ourselves in a position to, have as many of our teams in postseason as possible.
Sure.
So those two things kind of can work against each other, but we're trying to marry the two. And I think that's really why the decision was made. Okay.
So was there strong consideration at times for a 4 SEC game weekend series?
Yeah, there's very much strong consideration for that, Bo, and I think there's some strengths to that. And that's why we've left the door open if we get into an unfortunate situation to where, some non-conference things can't happen, we could easily pivot into that type of schedule as well. So, yeah, I think there is some strength to that and some support for that as well.
And then attendance will be driven by state officials, right?
Well said, my friend. It just breaks my heart. Every morning I drive in here and I look at that left field lounge, and I just think, my goodness, it's just not going to be the rock and rolling, 4,500 to 5,000 in that outfield, and the additional 4,500 chairback seat. I mean, it's just not going to be what we want it to be. But we're trying to devise a plan to include as many people as we possibly can, with midweek games and SEC games. It's just really difficult because, the players get to play and you want them to play in front of great crowds, but you also want to honor our fan base. And we believe we have the best fan base in all of college baseball. So we're really trying to balance these things along with the governor's orders to make sure we give our people the best experience they can have, but it's going to be a challenge for sure.
I bet. And it's out of your hands, but people are freaking out, because like you said, it's like spring Mardi Gras from late February till however long Mississippi State baseball plays. I mean, it's a religion, it's a lifestyle for people. It's what they, as you well know, it's what they do on those 5 SEC weekends, not counting some non-con and not counting some if they're fortunate to host regional and or super regional. So that's all Blake and I've heard the last few weeks is, what will baseball attendance look like? Speaking of, I know you're happy with Chris Lemonis and Gotro and Foxhall. What do you think about the squad?
Yeah, it's a really I think the concern was we lost, you lose 2 first-rounders in the middle infield, and you say, how good can this lineup be? I think the lineup's going to be better than most people think it is. Well, you look at the weekend in terms of who the arms we're going to throw out there. I mean, all 3 of those guys on the weekend could. I'm not saying it will happen, but they're in the mix to be first-rounders, all 3 of those guys. I mean, if all the stars aligned and you had 3 first-rounders on the weekend, how many times can that be said that's happened in the history of college baseball? So you start looking at the first-round picks Mississippi State's had here in recent years. It's pretty phenomenal, and what that does, it has this residual type of effect to where the kids step into the program and they say, I want to be a first-rounder. I want to be this guy that I just watched the last 3 years. That's exciting. So I think our depth on the mound is really, really good. I think it's as good a depth as there is in the entire country. You're replacing 2 middle guys, but I think that lineup, it's going to rely on a couple of new guys, a couple of freshmen. If they can do some, dare I say, Jake Mangum type things, which is probably very unfair to say, I think the lineup has a chance to be pretty good.
Yeah. John Cohen on the Out of Bounds show. I know you know this. All right, so Mississippi State, are they the only school, Blake? All right, multiple draft picks in the NFL, NBA, and MLB draft. I'm sure you've seen that this past year, right?
Sure.
How do you, what do you chalk that up to as far as the programs having the ability to, I guess, recruit and develop those type kids and have that success in the 3 pro drafts?
Yeah, I just think it's coaching staffs that this is a great place to sell. Mississippi State is a great place. Starkville's a great place. What has really hurt us in the last year, though, and I'm not saying this is an excuse in any way because our coach has done a great job, but when you can't get kids on campus and show them what Mississippi State is all about up close and personal, it really hurts us from a recruiting standpoint. And the people you just mentioned, all those draft picks, they got a chance to step on this campus and get the feel. When I first stepped on this campus, 150 years ago, and there were dinosaurs hiding behind the trees, I knew when I stepped on this campus, this is where I want to be. There's just something so inviting about the people here and this campus. It's just, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And we've just spent the last 9 months, actually more than that, we're getting closer to a year now, not being able to do that in the recruiting process. So that has, that's a concern, but certainly our coaches have done a great job. And those draft picks you mentioned are, again, it's going after the right kids at the right time, evaluating them the right way, and it's all about the coaches who did the evaluation.
Yeah. All right, we'll leave it there. John Cohen, athletic director for Hail State, and he joined us on the Abita Andy Gator guest line. John, thanks for your time this morning. We'll catch up again soon.
Yes, sir, Bo. You have a good one. Thanks,
John. John Cohen, AD at MSU, talked to little Mike Leach, football program grabbing some momentum midway through the year, capping it off with 2 wins, and then some SEC baseball. And you can tell that, this is going to be driven by state officials as far as attendance in Starkville and Oxford. And it is absolutely crazy how much we love SEC baseball, but they're just going to have to do what they can, Blake, as far as it's not going to be a packed house in Starkville or Oxford. So that's where we are, and we'll see what unfolds here over the next couple of months. Maybe it'll get better. Maybe over the course of the season, state officials will bump it slowly. I don't know if you can even get close to 50% at some point. Probably not. But we'll see. And I guess they're going to maybe rotate people through. I've heard all kinds of different options as far as every other spot in the outfield types. Like you get it every other spot on Friday and this day and whatever. So we'll see how that looks. Bottom line is, though, I still want the games, Blake. I mean, I know it's not the same, but I'll take them on our TV and streaming and all that, watching the Dogs and the Rebs march through hopefully a 30-game SEC schedule.
I'm going to take my TV to the baseball fields here in Madison and just eat some sunflower seeds in the dirt while I watch Mississippi State baseball.
Yeah.
Just so I can feel alive.
Just so you can feel alive, man.
I will say, you're right, though. I mean, there's something... It's the romanticization of baseball, the nostalgic. There's something about when you walk into any stadium, baseball stadium, and it's crack of the bat, pop of the mitt. Like you said, it's the only sport that I really care about being there early for.
Yeah.
Because the warm-up process, batting practice
I can go watch people warm up.
Yes.
I'm not interested in football or hoops, obviously. I mean, I love both sports. But
not the pregame. There is a nostalgic, theatrical nature of baseball that is hard to encapsulate unless you're there.
That's right.
And that's what State and Ole Miss and the SEC in a larger sense has done so well over the last 20, 30, 40 years is capturing the piece of baseball that brings us back. It's that tide of what we love, just drama, ups and downs.
Right.
Kind of what life is about. That's what you experience in a 9-inning baseball game. I love it.
I thought he made a great point on Will Rogers and how the game may come to you in baseball.
Nowhere to hide.
But in football, it's every play.
Nowhere to hide.
At the quarterback position.
Yeah.
I also, with baseball in general, but SEC baseball and the way this state is wired and a couple other teams in the conference, Blake, it takes us into that time of year where we get sunshine, warmer weather, even more cooking.
Just sitting out.
Yeah.
Going to a baseball game is almost an event. Yeah.
Vitamin D, feels good, all of it. Cold beer, some good food, and like you said, the crack of the bat and hearing the mitts, I can't wait. And the fact that he mentioned this, we only had like 16 games last year for State and Ole Miss.
Yep.
And both were looking really, really, really good. Ole Miss had only dropped one game. Mississippi State had just beat Texas Tech twice.
Yep.
And that's after losing a first-round pick on the mound. But he brought up Foscue and Westberg. Man, that is a gutting to not have because they could have driven you to the College World Series. Those guys are so uber talented, and having them at second and short. Did I get that right?
That's correct.
Second and short as juniors, and then their first round picks. Anyway, I can't wait. Either way, it's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks for listening to the show today. I really appreciate y'all going to the podcast. Apple Podcasts, search the Out of Bounds Show. We're on Spotify and Podbean too. Podcast sounds great since we've changed it over to Podbean. I want to thank you for also going to the Out of Bounds radio app. Blake ran the numbers this week, up 47% total listenership, 2020 to 2019 on the Out of Bounds radio app. Obviously, you can stream the show there or the zone1059.com. Hit the podcast, Apple Podcast, search the Out of Bounds Show. Would also love for you to subscribe. Have a great day. Show is presented by RPT and Rick's Pro Trucks, spraying bedliners and lift kits. Also, Went McGee, the Mortgage Man, mortgagemanms.com. Went McGee, mortgagemanms.com. Hey, y'all. Ace Bolt and Screw, powered by DeWalt Tools, now has a new retail location in Gluckstadt in Madison County, right off Industrial Drive on Hazleton. That's right. Ace Bolt and Screw, powered by DeWalt Tools, is now open in Gluckstadt in Madison County. Stop by, see everything they have to offer, and say hello. Ace Bolt and Screw, now in Jackson, Gluckstadt, Tupelo, and Atlanta. And also visit acebolt.net.